Greetings y'all, welcome back to the garden, and happy solstice. And in honor of the occasion, I figured today would be a great day to do a little quick tour of the yard, kind of see what's hitting, what's missing, and what we got planned in store for the rest of the year. So let's go take a quick tour, and let's see how things are looking. Let's go. Alrighty y'all, well let's take a look at the pepper patch here. As you can see, it's kind of anchored by two massive clumps of lemongrass and a peach tree, which is just now finally coming to life. We had this freakish snowstorm here in North Florida and South Georgia this year, and it just kind of threw everything out of whack by a couple weeks, and this peach tree is no exception. It took a while to come to life, but you can see it's really putting on some good new growth, and it's less than a year old, so you know, I wasn't really expecting any fruit or anything, but I'm glad to see it is finally waking up. And I actually made a video on planting this guy a while back, and I'll put a link to that up in the corner. Otherwise, we've just got lots of, you know, nice little peppers forming here. We've got, you know, hot peppers, sweet peppers, jalapenos. We've got some little long skinny red guys, some literal red hot chili peppers here, some green onions, you know, just all kind of different peppers coming along nicely. They love this super hot weather, and it's been literally 100% humidity with 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and a lot of these plants just can't take it, including these tomatoes. They've actually been coming to life now that we've been getting some good rain, but you know, they don't like the super mega heat. But thankfully, they are still managing to put on some fruit for me, so that's good. But when it's 100 degrees, you know, in temperature and 100% humidity, that's not necessarily ideal tomato weather, but you know, they're hanging in there and giving me some good fruit. My pineapples are now really waking up. We've got some baby papaya plants right here. Put a few of them next to each other. We've got moringa. We have various types of, you know, fancy basil, angel trumpet tree, a banana tree, some Mexican sunflower I've already chopped and dropped once, and in another month or so we'll probably have to come back and do that again. The elephant ears are starting to get massive. I'm 6 foot and they're already that tall, and they'll get another couple feet tall before the summer's done. Here's some Fakahatchee grass, nice and big. Here's another clump of just some wildflowers and pollinators. I've got more papaya, pretty little wildflowers. Big old mulberry tree that's really starting to take a nice shape to it and fill out, which is nice. More lemongrass. These are just some little plants I've gotten from my neighbor here lately. This is indigo, more papaya. This is a salt and pepper plant. I've also got my blueberries coming along, and they're slowly but surely ripening. I'm in a race with the birds. They kind of beat me to it every day, but that's all right. I don't mind too bad. This blueberry plant they pretty much picked clean, but these other two still have a few on them, and it's their first year, so you know, the fact that they're fruiting at all is great. Here's a tea olive tree that's doing well. As you can see, this mulberry tree is kind of starting to take on a nice shape, and I made a video about propagating those. I'll put a link to that as well. All of these beds are only 1 year old, so they're still fairly new. Here's a cool plant some people may have never seen. It's called a spider lily. And as you can see, it just sort of grows out of the ground on a little stalk like that, and it makes these little beautiful, delicate white flowers at the top. And it initially emerges from a rhizome and kind of looks almost like a grass like this, and then eventually the flower will emerge out of the middle. But they're real pretty, and I try to leave them and mow around them, and they just make real pretty little white flowers. Just kind of a flower bed that I need to update. This is a poor old Meyer lemon tree that, I don't know, he's just never really been up to snuff, but I've been able to take cuttings from it and they've done well. More Mexican sunflowers. I've chopped and dropped those once. This is just a terrible patch. I don't know what's going on over here. Just nothing's wanting to grow this year, but the elephant ear seems happy, and the banana trees are going bonkers and already have some fruit on them, so you can see those right here. And I made a video about those as well. I'll put a link to that. This is what's called Confederate jasmine, and this is a gardenia plant, and they're huge. They're as big as the house, but they've already flowered. They're kind of an early spring thing. This is a wisteria that's also already flowered, but just makes some nice shade. Let's see. Here's a blackberry bush. It had some fruit on it, but again, the squirrels beat me to it. But it had struggled for years, and this year it's finally starting to kind of really leaf out and look good. So they usually only make fruit on 2-year-old canes, so next year I should really get a good crop. This is a little banana tree that I ordered off of Amazon. It's called an ice cream banana, and supposedly it makes actual blue-skinned bananas, which will be fun. But I'm going to grow it up here to help block some of this sunlight, which is just brutal and blazing. That's also why I transplanted this mulberry, to kind of help block some of this light. Here's a good old crepe myrtle that's just real pretty. And here's another one of those ice cream banana trees coming along nicely. That's my neighbors in the pool. They're having one over there. This is a awapui or shampoo ginger that's just going ballistic. It loves this 100-degree temperature, 100-degree humidity, as do these canna lilies and this papyrus. But of course, most regular plants don't necessarily like it that much. This was all thick trees until a tornadoes and hurricane came through this year and just smoted it all down. And you can see all the logs, you'll see in a minute, that I've used to terrace the yard with. So this is all basically just 1 year old. And on the one hand, it looks good for a year, but I wish it was better. I wish I had some of my big trees back, but that's just gonna take some time. Here's a pretty little rose plant. And this thing is just amazing. It just makes roses non-stop, and they smell great, they look great, and there's just zillions of them. I don't know the exact name of this, but it makes red trumpet flowers that hummingbirds love eventually in the fall, but I don't know the exact name of it. Here's a beautiful yellow rose. Same thing, this thing is just always making flowers, smells good. These are all my various cuttings. You know, whenever I take cuttings, I'll put them back here, kind of put them in the shade, keeps them a little bit more moist, out of the direct sunlight, and there's, you know, just a little bit of everything hiding in there. We got a whole patch of aloe I need to divide. These are lilies that I've been slowly but surely harvesting with some spider plant. Here's a little planter that has some strawberries in it, and I don't think they like this heat either. It is just, they're growing, but they're not happy. They're not exactly thriving. I try to keep them in the shade, but you can see they're curling up their leaves just from the heat, and I water them as best I can, but it's just brutal. Here's some papaya plants coming along nicely. This is an angel trumpet tree that's now about 6 foot tall, and we'll get another 3 or 4 foot tall before things are said and done. Here's just a little bird of paradise and a planter. I need to fill out that planter as well. Here's a nice Megatron, huge papaya plant, huge for us here in Florida anyway. Here's my hand, whoop, by comparison, next to one of those leaves. And this thing is now almost up to my chest. And so hopefully it will have plenty of time to like fully mature, you know. And you can see that the stalk on it is nice and thick and robust. So this particular papaya plant is doing great. Oh, look y'all. It's already putting on some flowers. That's awesome. But the thing with papaya is you need a male and a female, you know, plant. So that's why I've been planting them all over the yard, just to hopefully get some of each. But yes, you can see it's starting to put on buds. Cool, cool. That's the first time I've ever had that happen. Neato. All right, well, let's go down this way. Here's those logs I was talking about from the trees that came down. I used them to just line the yard and make terracing because I didn't want to necessarily waste them or have to pay to have them hauled off. And it's worked great. They're already starting to decompose after just a year. And in another year, they'll be just like a giant kind of mulch pile. And I actually kind of like them. And as you can see, I put bird seed on them every day. And the birds and the squirrels come out here and eat it up. And that's nice and fun. Here's a passion flower vine I just transplanted this year. It was only about this tall about 2 months ago. And now it's already about 4 foot tall, so that's great. These are some sweet potatoes that I made a video about recently. I'll put a link to that up in the corner. And you can see they're really starting to vine and take off and get nice and thick. But again, they love this kind of tropical heat, you know, very high humidity, very high heat. So they're actually kind of just now starting to wake up and hit their pace. And here's just another little mulberry transplant. Here's a view of that little patch. The idea is to have those sweet potatoes kind of run out into this little grass field here. And this is just a whole strip of what they call shampoo ginger or awapui. Here's a banana tree transplant. You can see it's just now starting to put out a new leaf. So that means it's doing well. The old leaves kind of died back, of course, and it had one kind of, you know, semi-alive leaf on it, but then it put out a new fresh one, just like these guys here. And I've made videos on how to transplant bananas. I'll put a link to that up in the corner. Here's a giant monstera that's doing well. This is my brush pile. I'll call it a hugelkultur pile to sound fancy, but it's just where I put all my debris in the yard and slowly but surely let it break down. So pretend like y'all didn't see that. Pretend like it's something fancy. So we'll come back around here. Sweet potatoes. This is a camphor tree, which I cut back this year, and it's just gone crazy. It loved it. Here's some Mexican sunflower, that, as you can see, is 7 feet tall or so. I probably should drop that, chop and drop that here soon. Come around over here. Here's a little view of those terraced logs in one of these other beds. Here's a massive pokeweed. And not only do they look kind of cool and they're native, but these black berries are loved by the birds. For the first time ever, I had a crow in my yard, and he would get on the log here, then jump up into this massive pokeweed tree, and then come pick these berries off. So that was kind of cool. Plus, it just kind of looks cool. It has purple stalk and sharp, pointy leaves, and supposedly you can even eat it. It's a little toxic, but if you cook it enough, apparently you can eat it. But I just kind of let it grow wild just because it looked cool, and sure enough, the birds do like it, so that's nice. Here's another bed I've got. This is a poor old little apple tree, which again is finally starting to wake up, but I think that snowstorm we got just kind of confused it and set it back a few weeks, but it's less than a year old as well, so I'm not expecting too much. I just want to make sure it's not dead, and it is finally coming to life, so that's good. Here's some more like jalapeno type peppers. Here's a hydrangea, some more peppers. Big old blueberry, which, man, the squirrels beat me up on this one. This thing went crazy this year in its first year, but man, the squirrels were beating me to it every day, so they earned it, I suppose. Here's some nice big fat jalapenos, doing great. I'm gonna let these turn, red on the vine just because I can. But you can see on this little small plant, it's only knee high, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, dozens of peppers on it. Here's a watermelon patch starting to fill out. It actually really likes kind of being in the shade of these elephant ears. Keeps it a little bit more moist and a little bit more cool. Here's a gardenia. Here's a big old patch of elephant ears and monstera mixed together. Again, about 6 foot tall and growing. Some more of that pokeweed, hopefully to draw in some birds. Here is a plum tree, which is actually doing well. It's grown tons. I've actually had to trim it back once already, but you can see it's got a nice shape to it, which is good also. Oh, all right. Here's a mulberry tree. Look, it's even got some fruit on it, y'all. Awesome. And this is just a little guy that I planted inside of an old rotten tree stump. And there's just tons of natural compost and basically decomposed wood down there. And this thing does great. So I'm growing a tree inside of a tree, and it's working good. That thing tastes good too. I've noticed some of the other mulberries starting to put out another round of fruit here too. This is just my muscadine grapevine. It starts down here with a single stalk. You can see where I trimmed a secondary one off. Have one single stalk, and then just branches, one left, one right. And then I just let the vine grow from there. Again, this is only, 6 months old. So no fruit this year, but it's gonna fill up this whole fence line nicely. And it's really, in the last couple of weeks since we've been getting good water, really been doing well. Here's another sort of long shot of that bed. And if we come over here, here's just a little gate to a park I live next to. Here's another one of those ice cream banana trees, and it's doing great. Look at that. When I got this joker a couple months ago, it was only about that big, and it came as a 4-pack off of Amazon, and you can see it's 10 times the size of that now, and it's loving all this hot weather and rain too, of course. Again, it's only a few months old, so I don't necessarily expect it to fruit this year, but hopefully next year it will. Tomatoes here are struggling. I mean, technically not dead, but they ain't looking hot. They're just not loving this hot weather and all this humidity. These guys are putting on fruit, as you can see. But every day it rains and the heat gets them, and it kind of drops these fruit. You can see how they kind of bust right on the vine. So you're always in kind of a race to get out here and get to them before either the squirrels get them or the rain or whatever. But I'm just going to let all these tomatoes fall to the ground, basically decompose and turn wild, right? Let them grow back next year, self-seed, and see if we can kind of develop a land race, so to speak, a backyard variety that will do well right here in my own backyard. Here's another patch of tomatoes, and again, they look terrible, y'all. You can laugh at me. It's not looking good. We're not necessarily famous for our tomatoes around here, but it's always a race with the heat. Here's a little baby moringa coming in. Here's a cool looking crepe myrtle. Again, more of that pokeweed, which is much less mature, but it is starting to put on some early flowers, and these will become berries and everything. Again, all of this is really less than a year old, and I needed to have something grow on this slope, mostly just to keep it from washing away. It's kind of hard to see, but we're actually on quite a bit of a slope here. And if I didn't have these logs and this mulch and just basically some kind of plants, any kind of plants in here to kind of, hold that hill in place, the erosion would have been much worse. So, a lot of these plants I do like, but they may not be here forever and ever, amen. I just kind of had to get them in to get some roots down. But here's another angel trumpet tree, some more mulberry, gardenias, elephant ears, papyrus. And this is just wild millet that comes from the bird seed. And I let it basically germinate in the ground, grow, and the birds will come along and grab this stalk and peck off, I'm assuming it's millet, and have a good time, just like they did with the sunflowers. So that's kind of cool. And again, it's helping to hold this hill in place and keep this erosion from happening. You know, next spring I can come through and sort of plant all the fancy things I want. But this is just kind of a great, quick, fast, cheap way to get some free plants in the ground, some roots in the ground, while also making some food for the birds and the wildlife. So kind of killed, you know, two birds with one stone, you might say. Saved two birds with one stone. Here's a wild, massive tomato plant that's self-seeded. You can see it's still growing wild and putting out flowers, but the disease is starting to hit. And again, it's dropping tomatoes almost as fast as I can grab them. So I have to kind of come out here every day and just pluck the ripe ones and kind of race them. But you can see it is putting on very large bracts, but between the heat and the rain and the squirrels and everything else, you can see quite a few fall on the ground. But here again, I'm just going to let them self-seed and go feral and turn into their own little land race, so to speak. But we'll grab a few here. And they're small, but they taste delicious. More massive elephant ears. We'll take a little walk through this elephant ear tunnel. It's going to get even bigger as the summer goes on. I'm 6 foot, and as you can see, we're already walking through a tunnel of them. And we got a big old banana tree here. I'm assuming this guy will start to flower soon. Some of the other ones on the property are. This one isn't just yet, but I suspect it will here shortly. And big old elephant ears again. I'm 6 foot, and here we are walking underneath them, and it'll get even bigger still. All right. Okay. There's a cool shot of those, and then we'll go right back out to the front here. This is one of my favorite parts of the yard. As the summer goes by, this elephant ear tunnel kind of fills in, and it's really fun. These things grow like weeds basically around here. Here's another one of those massive pokeweed plants. Again, the birds love it, and it's helping to hold that hillside in place and give a little shade, right? Sorry about the AC noise, but it's 100 degrees out. We got to keep it running here. All right, here's another banana tree patch. Again, they're looking great. Nothing's flowering in this particular patch yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did any day now. Here's another papaya. Here's a monstera kind of hiding in the shade there. Still more papaya, because you get 5,000 seeds out of a papaya that you buy in the grocery store, so you might as well plant 1,000,000 of them. And my watermelon patch is finally starting to wake up. No real fruit yet, but you can see it's really starting to come to life and spill out. The only fruits I have are these little tiny guys that are just starting to pop up slowly but surely now that we've been getting some good rain. But this variety is definitely in its vegetative growth doing very well. So and I saw some bees on it earlier today as well, so I bet you there are some fruit hiding out in there. I just hadn't dug around for them. There's another one of those ice cream bananas hiding in the corner. Some more papaya, and these are doing great. You can see bigger than my hand, so they might get big enough to fruit, which would be awesome. Some more Mexican sunflower, some more decoratives, and we're basically right back to where we started. Right back here to the good old pepper patch. Alrighty, y'all. Thank you for joining me this little tour here. It was just a quick little, solstice tour, kind of see what's working, what's not. So far, I'd say I give myself a good, kind of a B- on the season. I think that winter snowstorm kind of did a loop on the nut plants. They got a little confused, and everything seems a few weeks behind from where it would ordinarily be. But hey, considering that this was all in deep shade less than a year ago and then turned into blazing sun and kind of had to plant all this out in a hurry, all things considered, it's doing well. So thank you for joining me with this one, and we'll see you in the next one.